So we've obviously created some top level parent routes. However, we want to create some lower level routes called child routes. Now we have a path of passengers, but what if we wanted to visit, say, /passenger 1 or passenger 2? So what we want to do is simply create an array on here called children. Now this array simply contains child routes based off of the path passengers. So what we'll do is delete this and make it a child. Child routes are pretty much the same as these kind of routes. So again, we can do path and we're just going to have an empty string. So this is basically going to be the first component that's rendered when passengers is loaded. So we can simply paste in that component that we just removed from below. So we can have passenger and then dashboard component. So let's save this out, go to the browser and check it out. So there is no physical difference in what we're actually seeing here. However, this is in fact a child route. So what we actually want to do is go to something like /1 and then load in that particular passenger. So let's go back and add what we call a dynamic route. Now to do this, all we need to do is create a new object. So we'll do path, and then all we need to do is say ID. So this ID property is going to be dynamic, and we're going to actually fetch it from the params in the URL. So for instance, it might be /1. We can take that and pass it into our service call to give us the correct data back. The component that we want to use for that is not the dashboard component, but it is in fact the passenger viewer component. So what we'll do is simply paste this one in. So when we go to any URL that's /, we're going to try and route to this particular component. So let's go to the browser and try it out. So what we can do is /1 and press enter. And you can see that Steve has now been rendered on the page. Now we have /2 and Steve is still added. We have 3 and Steve is still there. So what we can actually do is subscribe to these route params, which we'll do in the next video. So when the location changes, such as 2 again, we can pull in the correct data for our service and then render the data for that correct passenger. So in the next video, what we're going to do is basically implement the behavior to actually fetch the right passenger based on their ID. So the ID here is 1. So when we're at /1, this is technically correct because Steve has an ID of 1. However, /2 is in fact not Steve. So in the next video, we're going to use the router to basically grab this information and go and make the right service call to fetch the right data.